It's time for more Manifesting Original Rich Bitch Experiences. Each week, we're talking travel, wellness, and millennial musings with a level of refinement. What level? It fucking depends. I'm your host, Ava Bilkey. Welcome back to the More Pod. We are back, baby. It's been a few weeks. I took some time and now I'm back. I hope you missed me because I fucking missed you. I'm happy to return on a fun note because today we are going to do a travel review of Joshua Tree, California. Now, Joshua Tree is a small place with a big name. As I've been spending more time in California over the last couple of years, hanging out in Palm Springs, LA, one of the things that I have heard repetitively, consistently, is that I needed to see Joshua Tree. I like to think that if you hear something once, it's like, okay, noted. If you hear something twice, you're like, there's something to this. When you hear something 3 times, you know it's a sign, it's a message, and you've got to fucking act on it. So, 3rd time's a charm. I found myself back in California and available to day trip to Joshua Tree. And so I'm going to tell you all about it. Before we get into the travel review, I will say Joshua Tree is 2 things. There is Joshua Tree National Park, and there's Joshua Tree, the township, that really kind of sits just outside of the national park. Now, Joshua Tree, the town, has a tiny population. I think in the 2020 census, the population was like just under 8,000 people. I was already a little curious about this because if you're a rich bitch like me, you know that we love the big cities. More is more, baby. More people, more places, more things to do. When I saw that Joshua Tree was so tiny, I was a little bit hesitant. I'm not going to lie. But it reminded me of an experience that I shared on the podcast last summer when I day tripped to Castle Combe outside of Bath in the UK. Now, I started drawing these parallels between Joshua Tree and Castle Combe because they are both tiny little, they're not even cities, they're towns. And they've really just become these mega hotspots on the internet. Everyone's talking about them. Everyone's like, oh my God, you have to go. Super Instagrammable places, right? Like we see the cute Cinderella castle book, Castle Combe pictures on Instagram. And we also see the remote desert Joshua Tree pictures on Instagram. It's kind of a funny thing. And then you go there and it's like, this is not what I saw on Instagram. I share all of this to say, first and foremost, we're talking about tiny little spots on the map with huge reputations. And we're also just talking about day trips, right? Because there is not really enough to do in either of these places to warrant more than a day there. I mean, you don't even have to stay overnight. So, having had that prior experience last summer with that day trip, I felt more prepared to go into Joshua Tree. One of the questions that I was really setting out to answer is like, is this overhyped, right? Like, is it really as great as everyone says it is? Is there really anything to do? Is it a must see? When you're there, what should you do? What should you see? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So, like I mentioned, there's the town and then there's the national park. And I don't think you can really do one without the other. If you're going to go to Joshua Tree, you need to see both the national park in some aspects and the town. Because one or the other would just be, it wouldn't be enough to give you a real taste of what this place is like. Now, getting to Joshua Tree on a day trip can happen in a few ways. Depending on where you are, there are a lot of places that you could easily drive from to get to Joshua Tree for a day trip. my day trip started in Palm Springs. So I was in Palm Springs, California, and I drove to Joshua Tree. Now, it's also a popular day trip spot from LA and also potentially further south in Orange County. I have seen some whisperings on the internet of like you can day trip there from Las Vegas. I think that's a bit of a stretch because if you were to day trip to Joshua Tree from Las Vegas, it'd be like 3.5 hour drive one way, right? LA would be like two hours and some change. The drive time from Palm Springs to Joshua Tree was an hour and 20 minutes. Okay. That's much more doable when we're talking about day trips. So, with that, let me set the scene for you. Okay. Because I went into this day trip tired. I was exhausted. I had been not sleeping well. I had been working a lot. I had been feeling a little pressure to get this day trip in. You know, we got work to do. We've got podcasts to create. We've got travel reviews to do. Okay. I did this fully for you. Not that I didn't want to see Joshua Tree, but I was fucking tired. And this is important context because this is really the lens through which I planned my day trip. So, if you plan to visit Joshua Tree National Park, I highly recommend you spend some time doing research because this park is over 1,000 miles. It's huge, and there are a lot of different places within the park that you could potentially stop. So you've got to figure out what kind of hike or what kind of trail walk, what kind of things you want to see in the park. Because let me just say, the hikes and nature walks, they have range. We're talking like amateur hour, walk around the block, all the way up to you might die if you don't hike this rock properly. You know, that is the range that Joshua Tree National Park provides. So, doing some research on the front end before you go is going to be really helpful because you don't want to get into a situation where you're signing up for a hike that you maybe don't have proper equipment for, right? Or maybe you don't have the proper energy for, right? So, I go into this knowing like I didn't really pack for a hiking trip, you know? I'm not in Palm Springs hiking. So, I didn't have my hiking boots. I barely had a backpack. And by barely, I didn't have a backpack. I had yoga pants, right? And I had like a tank top. I had exercise attire and Air Force Ones. So that is the level of preparedness. Preparedness? That is the level of preparedness. Okay. I've got to stop with the words I don't know. That is the level of preparation I had to go into some level of hike. So I knew that I wanted to do something easy. I was tired. I didn't have the equipment. Luckily, there are great amateur hour options. And really, I think these are the rich bitch options when we're talking about seeing Joshua Tree National Park. You know, we're not going to hike and sweat and encounter scorpions. That is not the plan. The plan is to go, you want to see, you know, some Joshua trees. You want to see some palms, some yucca trees, and call it a day, right? Like, we don't really need to be having animal encounters. We don't need to be camping. We don't camp. We don't need to be just sweating our asses off. There is a bougie way to see a national park, and I think I found it. So I pinpointed Cap Rock as my Joshua Tree National Park experience. Now, Cap Rock is a zero point 0.4 mile, relatively flat walking loop. I love the word loop because a loop implies that you start and you end at the same place, and your chances of getting lost doing a loop are slim to none. Also noted at Cap Rock, restrooms. I love a place with a properly constructed restroom. Okay. They also had picnic tables and it was rated easy. They also said they had Joshua trees, right? Because I'm like, I just need to see some of these Joshua trees. If I'm coming to Joshua Tree National Park, that is the priority. Okay. And they had them at this place. So I was like, sign me up for Cap Rock, baby. we're going in. Now, once you decide where in the park you want to visit or where you want to start your visit, you can plug that into your Google Maps. So it was really important to pinpoint where I wanted to go within the park before I actually drove on the day trip, because depending on where you want to go, there are multiple entrances to the park, and you might have a totally different route if you wanted to start, say, like at the east end of the park versus on the west end. So, important to do your research and figure out where you want to start your park experience before you actually drive on your day trip. Also, you have to buy a park pass. I bought my park pass online in advance of driving through, and that was also great because it saved me a lot of time. Saved me a lot of time, and just plan to wait to get into the park. Like, there are only a few entrances and exits, and in order to get in, you do have to either buy a pass or show your pass. And when I got there, it was still, I thought it was early morning, but there was like a lineup of like 7 or 8 cars, even when I got there in the morning to get to the park. So just plan ahead for that, and know that if you buy your pass online, you're just going to save time for yourself and everyone else in line. And we fucking love that. Another important piece to note if you are going to the park is you need to be very aware of the weather. Now, I was there in October, and typically October temperatures are more enjoyable. You don't want to go in the to the desert in the middle of the summer, like June, July, August. Absolutely not. It's insufferable. However, we were having summer weather in October when I was there. So I think on the day that I went to Joshua Tree National Park, the high temperature was like 103 degrees Fahrenheit. It was hella hot. It was hella hot. And this combined with not being a morning person, it was tough, right? Because you're supposed to do these things, these outdoor activities early in the morning, early in the morning before it gets too hot. And look, I had good intentions. I had good intentions to wake up at 6 a.m., leave by, 7 and get there at 8:30. What time do you think I got there? I wanted to be there early, but my body just wouldn't let me. So I got there at 9:30. Maybe, completed my loop at Cap Rock by like 10:30. And let me tell you, I was sweating my fucking ass off by 10:30. It was so incredibly hot. And in that moment, I was really glad that I chose the loop, right? The 0.4 mile loop. Let's talk about this loop-de-loop. If you're somebody who has been hiking before, you'll know that the distance of the hike typically always feels much longer than it seems. I learned this when I was hiking the Amalfi Coast in Italy. They'll say, oh, this is like a 5 mile hike. And then you'll think in your head, well, 5 miles, like that's fine, because if I'm going to go on a walk around the lake, that's 3 miles. What's another 2 miles? But when you're in that mindset, you forget that these 5 miles are like vertical miles, right? Up and down, not just around. So 5 miles, while it sounds chill, it's the opposite. It's the opposite of chill. So that's what I had remembered when I was going into this Cap Rock, right? The 0.4 mile loop. And I'm like, it's going to feel, it's going to feel like longer than that because it's a hike. It wasn't a hike. It was literally a flat walk in a circle. And it took me maybe 15 minutes. And I was trying to go slow. Like I was trying to look at the trees and the dirt and the rocks and enjoy the nature aspect of it. I was like, now what? Now the fuck what? So mixed reviews on Cap Rock, okay? First and foremost, very interesting landscape. I love it. The Joshua trees are unlike anything else. They are truly unique to that area and they're endangered. And so, if there's something that you feel like you want to see in your lifetime, you should go see them. The landscape was also more varied than I thought it was going to be. I didn't expect all of the rocks and the boulders, which were really cool because my expectations were like zero, right? My expectations were like 0 out of 10. Look, I'm going to go see some more dirt and dust because we're in the desert and maybe some trees, right? I saw all of the above, but also the boulders and the rock formations were really cool. And so I was pleasantly surprised by that. Wildlife. I did not see any wildlife at Cap Rock aside from the bees flying out of the toilet. That was a little scary. So much for the bougie bathrooms, which were actually not bougie, but really just a toilet seat on top of a hole. But at least I got to pee with toilet paper. You know what I mean? But I'm glad. You know what? Because the wildlife that you can see in the park includes a lot of scary things. There's scorpions, there's rattlesnakes, there's black widow spiders, there's some birds and some other things. And I had no personal interest in seeing any of these animals. And so the fact that I saw virtually no wildlife was okay with me. On my little 15-minute loop walk, I did enjoy seeing the sights, but I'm not going to lie. It was basically a no thing. So, had I been in a more energetic state, I probably would have continued on to one of the other hikes or trails or areas in the park. One of the other places I considered was the cactus garden. So, there's a cactus garden that's supposed to be really pretty at sunrise. And then also one of the more popular trails is called the Hidden Valley, like the ranch dressing, I believe. Hidden Valley Trail. So those would have been good options. But again, I was tired. I wanted to do this the bougie way. I wanted to see the trees. I saw the trees. I feel like it was mission accomplished, but I couldn't get on here and hype up Cap Rock without telling you that, like, yes, it's cool, but it's also not a lot. You know what I mean? So, if you're looking for a very, very casual brush with the park, Cap Rock is a great place. Now, something else that I attempted while I was at the park was vlogging. Listen, vlogging has been on my mood board for the entire year. And every time I travel, I bring this new vlog camera with me. It's the one that I use to film the podcast. But you wouldn't be able to tell that because I only published the audio. Look, this has been a stretch year for me. You know, learning how to produce this show on my own has been a big learning curve. And I finally feel like I'm getting the hang of it. And I've been secretly capturing video because eventually I would also love to have a video version of the More Pod. So if that's something you're also interested in, let me know. But more so, I got this camera because I really want to vlog. Like, I want to create videos of my travels. And I think that one, it would be just such a nice thing to have personally that I can look back on someday and be like, wow, remember when I was young and fun and living my best fucking life and have that all on camera? I think that would be great. And two, I love watching travel related content. And so I figured that making my own travel related content would also be great. But listen, I can't tell you how many times I have attempted vlogging and have abandoned ship. But what I did start at the park at Cap Rock was a vlog. Will it ever see the light of day? I don't know. I don't know. Because what happened is I was really good about vlogging my little Cap Rock loop. And then I got to the town and I was like, I think I'm going to leave my camera in the car. Like it just didn't feel like the right place or the right time to continue the vlog adventure. And I don't know how much of that was true versus how much of that was a projection, but I wanted to bring this up because I will say, if you are ever looking for what feels like a safe space to create content, a national park is absolutely that place. Why? Because everybody there is a tourist. Everybody at Joshua Tree National Park is a tourist, and they all have cameras that had even bigger lenses than mine had. Okay. Like they were legit. They were in there with the content. So, national parks could be a great place to practice some public content creation, like develop a little bit of that callus of filming out in public. I love that for me. And I love that for you. So, hot tip, national parks, great place to create content and not feel like you're being stared at because everyone else also has a camera. But tiny little towns, on the other hand, not so much. So, that wraps up the park part of the experience, right? If you want to just have a very casual brush with the park, a little Cap Rock loop is a perfect way to start off your Joshua Tree day trip, okay? Just go earlier in the morning before it gets too fucking hot because even at 10 a.m., I was roasting. And make sure you bring water, wear proper shoes, and don't carry around a black metal water bottle. You will burn your fingers. So after my morning loop, it was time for some beverages. So I went into Joshua Tree, the town, and my first stop was at Joshua Tree Coffee Company, a coffee shop and also a bean roaster. And they create really great, locally made, organic coffee. This coffee was delicious. If you are a coffee connoisseur, if you're into like the taste of the beans, like if you're deep into it, if you're into coffee like some people like myself are into wine, you'll like the coffee at Joshua Tree Coffee Company. Now, my normal order at the coffee shop is a black coffee or an iced coffee, just black, depending on the season. Obviously, it was hot, so I got an iced coffee. But I was in a really fucking weird mood the day I went on this day trip. And I decided to add chocolate syrup to my cold brew. It was not good. Okay. But that was on me. The coffee was delicious. The chocolate syrup was disgusting. I should have just kept it true to my roots, Like I don't know why I needed to do that, but there's another example of me making a weird call that I'll share with you in a bit. The coffee is delicious. The branding is fantastic. They have gorgeous branding. The shop is really pretty. And it's really the only coffee shop that I saw when I was in town. So if you're looking for coffee in Joshua Tree Coffee Shop is the spot. Now, since I was in a weird mood, I decided to continue my beverage collection from there. I went to the Natural Sisters Cafe for my next beverage. And the Natural Sisters Cafe is literally across the street from the coffee company. And it's in a little strip mall. So it's one of those places you don't go for the vibes, but you go for the smoothies, you go for the healthy food item. And a smoothie was just what I needed after sweating my ass off, dehydrating with coffee, and needing something to rehydrate with. So the smoothie that I got was their dessert special. It was some combination of mango and papaya and beet juice and ginger and lemon and honey, and it was incredible. It's gorgeous. I took a photo. I'll share it on the More Pod Instagram. And it was the perfect way to kind of refuel after Cap Rock. So after the cafe, took a little break to go shopping, right? Because on a day trip, there's only so much consecutive eating and drinking that one can do. So there were a string of really cute shops, again, right on this main street. I think it's called like 29 Palms Highway or something like that, but don't quote me on it. There's a string of really cute shops. So, first up, I stopped at the Rock Shop, Drop Top Rock Shop. The Rock Shop is a crystal store. And like everything else I've mentioned so far, it's named the Joshua Tree Rock Shop. Once in a while, I love to stop in a rock shop. I think it can be an experience that helps you feel aligned, like you're on the right path. You know, going into a rock or crystal store, I think the best way to approach it is to walk in without any expectations and gravitate towards whatever rock, stone, crystal is calling your name. Pick it up and just go with it. Now, every stone or crystal has specific properties and uses. And so, my favorite thing to do is to intuitively grab whatever it is that you feel drawn to, right? You buy it, you walk away. And then, after you've already acquired the stones, go in and look up the stone's properties. Every time I have done this, I have felt so incredibly aligned. It's like seeing angel numbers. It's like, holy shit, of course I grabbed this rock. This is exactly what I need right now. Or this is exactly what I'm working to cultivate. Okay, so when I went into this rock shop, I grabbed orange calcite. Now, the rock shop, the Joshua Tree Rock Shop, they give you these cute little cards that have the properties of the stones on them. So, orange calcite is for confidence and motivation, increases confidence and boosts motivation. Positive energies are raised and steered into the respective areas of the body that need them the most. When I read this, I nearly lost it because one of the things that I am working on right now is requiring me to muster up a shit ton of motivation. Okay. So when I saw motivation, I was like, of course, of course, I grabbed the orange calcite. Okay. I need more motivation than God right now. So again, it was just a fun moment, right? Sometimes I walk into a crystal shop and I don't leave with anything. I think it's very similar to vintage shopping, right? Like sometimes you have a score, and other times you just don't really vibe with anything. But at the Joshua Tree Rock Shop, I went in unknowingly looking for motivation, and I left with orange calcite, and that's pretty cool. So that's a fun stop if you are looking for something to do on your day trip to Joshua Tree. Keeping with the naming conventions, after the rock shop, I went to the Joshua Tree Bottle Shop. The bottle shop is a wine store. And I was a little torn about going in here because I was driving around all day, right? And it was really hot. And so buying wine and keeping it in the car, in a really hot car, obviously isn't the vibe. But I still wanted to go in. I just wanted to pop into the store. So when I went to the Joshua Tree Bottle Shop, really cute place. Small but really thoughtful curation selection of wines. They also had some beers and spirits as well. What I loved about the bottle shop is that they curate unusual wines. meaning you're not going to walk in there and find fucking barefoot Chardonnay, right? Absolutely not. That's what the liquor Costco is for. You walk into a shop like this because you want to find a unique, small batch, family owned, organic wine from a part of the world that maybe you haven't been to. I did end up buying a bottle of French red, and I ended up carrying it with me in my tote bag in and out of every other place I went because I didn't want the wine to spoil in the car. But it was delicious. It was absolutely delicious by the time I actually consumed it, which is funny because that bottle of wine actually ended up coming with me from Joshua Tree to Palm Springs to LA to Minneapolis. It was consumed in Minneapolis. I hauled that fucker everywhere, but it was delicious. So that was a fun browse. Another stop that I made on my little shopping trip down the strip mall was to the Grateful Desert Apothecary. This place was also really cool. They had a lot of essential oils and incense and herbs, all the cool hippie shit that I love. They had a counter where you could actually make custom potions, if you will. There's an herbalist there who makes custom potions. I didn't do a custom potion, but I did buy some radical self-love body mist. I felt like I needed just a little zhuzh. Say what you want. Like I understand the body mist is like scented water, but scented water makes you feel good. It makes you feel better. And I'm kind of obsessed with this body mist. I don't know exactly what it smells like, but it smells good. It smells lovely. So that was fun. And that concluded, the shops that I hit that I had success in. It's kind of cute, You grab a crystal, you grab a bottle of wine, you grab some body mist. What more could a girl want? The girlies are girlie-ing. From there, I considered popping into a couple of vintage stores. And I tried, and I just wasn't in the mood. And that's the thing about vintage shopping. You have to be in the mood. And if you're not, it's not going to be an enjoyable experience. But there are some shops in the area, if that's of interest to you and you're feeling it, that you could definitely work into your day trip in Joshua Tree. Last and certainly not least, I needed to have some lunch before I drove back to Palm Springs. So I drove technically outside of Joshua Tree, further into the Yucca Valley, to have lunch at La Copine, a hidden gem. This restaurant is in the middle of nowhere. It really is a destination. And what's so interesting about it is that they only serve lunch, and somehow they've conjured up this reputation, this vibe. Like the restaurant was written up in the New York Times. It was also a restaurant that I was recommended by people who know me or at least have a sense of my taste, right? So La Copine was recommended to me, in the conversation of, well, it's not like a New York restaurant, but like it's close, or like it's not Michelin star, but it's good. So I was like, okay, we love her. We love her. Let's try it, right? So I drove there for lunch. I don't know. Maybe it was like a 10-15 minute drive from where I was in Joshua Tree. But you get there and it's just a restaurant and a huge parking lot. Nothing else really around. They do take reservations, but you can also do walk-ins. So I walked in, I wrote my name on the clipboard. Apparently, that's what the locals do when you don't have a reservation. You walk in, write your name on the clipboard, and that puts you on the wait list. And as I was waiting, they had this really cute pop-up shop in an Airstream, like right on the property. that had some really cool imported goods from Oaxaca. It was like Oaxacan clay, skulls, jewelry, all sorts of very interesting things. So that was fun. When I finally got seated for my lunch, I was in a weird mood. I didn't know what to order because, I had had my chocolate coffee, I had had my beet smoothie. Like I was hungry, but I wasn't hungry. And I was feeling like I needed some nutrients. But here's the thing, I needed to order one more strange beverage. So I ordered a champagne cocktail. You know what? When in Joshua Tree, have champagne cocktails in the desert for lunch, right? A champagne cocktail is a combination of champagne and bitters and sugar. Now, if you're wondering why you would add sugar to champagne because champagne already has plenty of sugar in it, that's a great thought. And I agree with you. It's unnecessary. But I ordered a champagne cocktail because it's something that you don't see on menus very often, certainly not menus for restaurants in the middle of the desert. And it was a little different, but again, it was just like a little weird and a little unnecessary. I should have stayed with the black coffee. I should have just stayed with a glass of champagne. When it comes to the menu, the restaurant has a rotating menu. I was considering heavily the shrimp. What was it? A shrimp roll? I was considering the shrimp roll, but then I asked how big it was, and the response was big. So I ordered the buttered lettuce and a side of filet mignon. And I basically made myself a steak salad. And it was delicious. It was delicious. It was simple, but it felt nutritious. And who doesn't love steak and champagne cocktail? I was there to get weird with it, and weird it was, but in a good way. So, lunch was interesting. It was an experience. It was good. But again, just like those who had recommended it to me, it wasn't like Michelin star good, you know? But again, why would you expect that in the middle of the desert? You don't. You don't. So that was my day trip. That was my day trip to Joshua Tree National Park and Joshua Tree and the surrounding areas. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the trip. I think that there are a lot of ways you could do this trip, and it really just depends on what you're looking for. If you want to go more naturey, you know, do more involved hikes, you have the right equipment and gear, or maybe you like to camp, you could turn it into maybe a 2 to 3 days max in Joshua Tree. 3 days max. Maybe 2 days max. Unless you're trying to see every inch of the park, okay? If you want to see every inch of the park, 3 days. If you want to see a decent amount of the park and you're doing some camping, glamping shit, 2 days. If you just want to have a little brush with the trees, like I did, day trip is perfect. Definitely some gems, some cute little spots to hit in town. I mean, everyone needs coffee eventually, right? Everyone needs crystals and body mist and wine. It was nice. It was nice. It was fun. Like I do with every travel review, I give my experience in the location a rating out of 10. And I recently had the epiphany where I realized that I needed to start assigning decimal points to cities, right? Because we needed to add some differentiation. So, with that in mind, I would give Joshua Tree, California a 7.2 out of 10. And a 7 is like a good time, right? Like it is a good time. It's not a fantastic time. It's not an outstanding time, but it's a good time. And I think you can have a good time anywhere. You know, if you are enjoying your company, your own company, or whoever else you're with, if you are enjoying exploring a new place, being somewhere new, it's hard not to have a good time, right? And I think also realizing that a lot of things are good, not great, it makes the great like that much more special, right? So, Joshua Tree, good time. 7.2 out of 10, good for a day trip. Do I think it is worth the mega hype? Do I think it is worth the Instagram reputation that precedes it? Not necessarily. But again, it's a good time. That concludes our Joshua Tree day trip travel review. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take the time to leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I appreciate the time you spend with me here. It does not go unrecognized. It's really become a love language of mine. When you tell me you listen to the podcast, I'm like, oh my God, I love you. So with that, I love you. Be more you. More is more. You are the most. And I'll see you next week. Listen to the More Pod every Wednesday as I share the things that make me more me and discover a thing or two to make you more you.